What if I told you that you could design and live the life that you want on your own terms? Would you do it? Would you take a leap into the unknown? Or would you settle for a life of limits, a life of safety but lacking true meaning? Zeph and Moses Blacksburg here, and I'm on a journey to help you ignite your inner passions, let go of your fears, and get more out of life. Will you join me and make this year your year of purpose? Welcome to the Year of Purpose podcast. Hey everyone, Zeph and Blacksburg here, back again with another episode of the Year of Purpose podcast. And today I'm joined by Jay Massey. Jay wasn't always the real estate investor he is today. His road was paved with challenges he had to overcome. He literally went from having zero, squatting in a bank-owned property, to owning more than 300 units of property across several states, and is involved in a pretty cool luxury resort village project in Belize. Today, Jay is an investor, published author, speaker, educator, podcast host, entrepreneur, and business owner. His brand Cash Flow Diary is gaining global recognition. Jay, thanks so much for being here today.
You're welcome. And you know, somewhere in there, I actually sleep, believe it or not.
I don't know how you do it, because I'm kind of in the same boat. I've got a lot of things on my plate, and I don't sleep very often, but still have to do it from time to time.
I know. It's like if your body didn't force you, why take the time?
Right. So I want to jump into your story just to start this off, and I didn't want to really give away too many details of this because I didn't want to do it any disservice. So maybe hopefully you could just start off with us, tell us kind of where you were a few years back and how you found yourself there.
Well, how I found myself there is probably something that many people are familiar with at the end of the day, because I was told to go to school, get good grades, get a job. That was the way to make things work. And it took me many years to find out that I was the worst employee on the planet and I should have never been. So that's how we end up in these situations. The question is do we then develop the courage necessary to actually do something about it? And for me, to be honest, unless the following events that happened to me happened, I don't think I would have ever developed the courage to actually do something about it. So for myself and my wife, we had experienced a miscarriage, and I know there are a number of people who know what that pain feels like. And so when we were pregnant again, we were like, oh, cool. All right, here we go. And what we didn't know is that when she's pregnant, she also developed a condition known as hyperemesis. Now, most people have no clue what that is. Very simply put, if you were trying to drink a glass of water or eat something as simple as bread, you would not be able to. So you couldn't drink or eat, period. And that's the beginning of the stressors that were in my life at that time. So I was a self-employed financial planner, trying to go to the hospital with my wife all the time, which meant that, you can't exactly invite your clients to the hospital to meet you to do their financial plan. It's not quite the setting that that you should. So as a self-employed person, I began to learn a very difficult lesson. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no such thing as sick leave, and there was nothing there. So I don't know, in this situation, I think others have experienced before too, where you have to choose, do I take care of my family or do I go to work? And I chose to stay by my wife's bedside, and I started selling our personal possessions on eBay. That was like the solution until the garage was empty. And then you got to come up with a new solution. And it was around that time a friend said, hey, you should become a real estate investor, which I don't know, Zeph, if you've ever seen a dog like cock their heads inside like this. It just didn't make sense to me to do that. It's like, okay, hold on. You want me to become a real estate investor? Do you realize I have a credit score of 398, and unless you're paying for lunch today, I am not eating? Do you understand that this is where I am? And it didn't matter to him. And I was like, okay, sure. So from that standpoint, like I said, with a credit score of 398, barely having $75 in our pocket, we started learning about real estate investing techniques. Now, mind you, we're getting foreclosure notices. We're doing our best to keep food on the table. We're making decisions. Do we pay the electric bill or do we buy food? And the guy at front of the stage is like, hey, you can do real estate. Really? Good. And then he goes, you can do it with no money, no credit. Oh, great. Because you're going to have to really show me how to do that. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen because I literally have no money, no credit. And most people, when they say those things, they say, when they say I have no money, they mean they're down to their last dollar or down to their last $1,000, 10,000, or depending on their frame of reference. I've worked with some of some individuals who say things like, yeah, I'm down to my last $2 million. And that's fine today, depending, it's all relative. The point is when we hit that spot, what are you going to do about it? See, I was at this place and what we decided to do is actually do what we were told to do. We started doing what I now call moving at the speed of instruction. And in a short period of time, things began to get better. But before they get better, of course, they take a little dip for a little bit worse. So I went to go play volleyball because I was trying to blow off some steam. I thought that was going to help. I jumped, landed on a guy's head, punctured my lung, and now I couldn't walk and talk without fainting. So if you can imagine, I'm learning a new industry that I've never done before. I'm unable to walk or talk simultaneously without fainting. My wife can't eat or drink, and we have no money. And that's the situation with kids in tow. So you've got to understand that was our situation and what makes me work and do the things that I do today. When you're fighting for something as basic as clothing, food, and shelter, and you're really clear on that, well, you get to work and you make a lot of things happen. So we've had the fortune of doing a ton of real estate in many different states. Now countries is what we're beginning to expand to. We've done commercial, we've cell phone tower. We've got all kinds of interesting plays and things going on. And we've worked with tons of investors now to go out there and help them begin to achieve their dreams. And we've taught a lot of people to do the same thing. So it's been something of a journey, to say the least.
Yeah, a journey to say the least, absolutely. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
When you get to that place, because a lot of us have not, many of us have gotten to that place and many of us haven't.
Sure.
When you look at that bank statement and see that, like, this is it, what goes through your head? Because you had to make that decision of work or family. And, in my eyes and most people, family comes first. Family always comes first.
Right.
What are you thinking? I mean, some people might get stuck in that negative thought of I'm a failure or I messed up or I didn't make this. How do you kind of turn that around and say, well, here's where I'm at and this is what's going on and I'm just going to keep going from here? Got it.
And you're right. And it's not like I was any different. That was a failure event. So the first thing is to understand is to disassociate the events from it being you. Many of us have had failure events. Very few of us are actually failures. And you may have failed thousands of times. That's great. Thomas Edison failed a lot of times before he finally got the light bulb. And fortunately he did because he was willing to fail as many times as he did, we now have computers and all kinds of interesting things that come along from that, right? So the point is that I think the school system to a degree has done us a disservice in training us to think that we have to get it right, the first time and without any help. That's the correct way to do things. And once you cross that line to become an entrepreneur, that's just not true. You're going to get it wrong more than you get it right many times, and you're going to need a ton of help. And until we learn how to fail properly, it's always going to stunt our growth and make it tough. And that's one of the first lessons I had to learn is that my best ideas, and Zephan, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I have never met a person who has said to me, they wake up in the morning and go, I can't wait to aim straight for the bottom. No one has ever said that to me. Everybody tries their best every day, which means the result you're currently receiving that you call your life experience is a result of your absolute best thinking. And when you're ready to take ownership for that result being less than what you hoped for, then you can begin to make a change. And that's what we had to do. We had to just look at it. You know what? This is a result of our best thinking. We did the best we knew how to do, and it resulted in losing a house, squatting a bank-owned property, a punctured lung, unable to eat or drink, and making decisions that I don't wish on anybody. However, the gift is we got clear, hyper clear about what we wanted to do. And then we got hyper focused and we learned those things. Nothing crisis focuses people in a way that nothing else does. You know, anytime you've ever been under those high intense situations, you know that every moment counts at the end of the day. Even worse is most people say they want to become an investor. I say you already are. And the challenge is most people don't see themselves that way. And what I simply mean is we misuse our number one asset, i.e. time, in such a way that it produces a very low return. And then we get upset about the result. And learning how to frame those things differently has made all the difference.
Yeah, I really like what you said about it's really kind of how we react to whatever's going on in our life. One of the positions that I held when I was in college was I was a supervisor of the recreation center, and I was a first responder. And if somebody passed out on the basketball court, I was the first person to get the call on the radio.
Exactly.
And you really kind of learned in that position that you can't go, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Right.
You have to get up there and you have to be the first person on the scene, and you have to be the one to call 911 and to make sure that that situation is, as controlled as you possibly can. There's a lot of stuff beyond your control, biological factors, whatever's going on with them. But as long as you reacted in a way where you know that you did your best, I think that the situation's going to end up for the better. Now, when you were in all of this and your friend comes to you and says, hey, you should pick up real estate investing.
It's a natural response. Everybody has that idea. That makes perfect sense.
How did you know that this was what you should do? Or was there some sort of a sign, or it was just like, hey, we got nothing left to lose. Let's just go with it. I mean...
Oh, God, I know, right? It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, it's a combination of a number of things. One, it speaks to the power of a mentor who's willing to have a third party observance of what's going on in your life and that they may have a better perspective. So that's number one. Number two, as a financial planner, I had experience in the sense of seeing what financially successful people have done. And being out here in Orange County, California, there's lots of money. Period. There are lots of people with money, and I got to sit with them. I've got to sit with, teachers, and I got to sit with single professionals who are earning $200,000-$300,000 and still crying broke, and I got to sit with everything in between to figure out, well, how that all works. I mean, and probably closer to 200,000, especially on the single people, but married people, even then, still, the point is, I got to see what they did. They all had something in common. That one thing that they had in common was rental real estate, not just, fixing and flipping and those types of things. There's nothing wrong with them, but they all had rental real estate if they were going to be on a track to actually make things happen. My challenge is I didn't grow up in a family that talked about these types of financial concepts. There's nothing in my background that gives me, the way that I grew up that says, hey, this is what you should do. And there's a guy out there who says, if something that you're doing isn't working, don't do it differently. Do the opposite. Like, there you go. So when you're in that situation, it's like, hey, let's do the opposite of everything that we've ever done. Now that's going to be painful at the beginning, but that's okay. And at the end of the day, I've got very strong ties to church, God, and my family, friends who are willing to support. Because my wife, oh my God, you want to talk about something that's amazing. She comes from a line of lawyers and doctors and a whole bunch of college educated individuals. And here I am, a college dropout, struggling, and she's struggling with me. And I'm just like, wow, you picked the good one, didn't you? So, but she saw that I didn't need to be in the traditional system, that there was no happiness for her because I was upset all the time being in that. It's like, you need to do something different. I don't know what it is, but you better figure it out, find it, make it happen. And at the end of the day, real estate just happened to be where my genius shines. We're all got something. We bounce around from thing to thing. And the cool thing is when you do find the thing that you're interested in, all that past experience that you have in all those other areas will serve you going towards what it is that you're doing now. Just like it is for you. All your past experience doing whiz bang awesome videos for all of these awesome people, names that everybody knows and recognizes, is now serving you to be able to deliver your message to people so that they can finally find, hopefully, a purpose for themselves and go out there and make things happen.
So let me ask you this. When you get to that moment where you realize that there's no real like I made it moment, because it's like, well, how much money in my bank account determines I made it? Is it 100,000? Is it $1 million? But there had to be some sort of a moment where you kind of stopped yourself. I don't know if it was like one morning and you woke up, or maybe you closed a sale on a house, but was there a moment for you in time where you just kind of like sat down and looked at everything going on around you and said, you know what, look where I was. We couldn't pay the bills. I couldn't talk, freak accident, I got injured. All these things were happening.
Sure.
And now I don't know if you have a dog or if you have any pets, but like, did you have a moment where you just sat down and you're like, I have a house that is mine. I have children that are here today with me that I can enjoy as much time as I want with. And I have, pets or food or whatever it is. What was that like for you? And how could somebody almost identify that moment? What sort of happens?
Well, how to identify that moment? Good luck. As far as I know, here's what I can say that began to, happen is I didn't have to get up, at any prescribed time. In fact, it got so bad to the point where I was like kind of waking up around 10 a.m. in the morning, like, hey, all right, let's start the day. Oh, it's 1 o'clock, time to quit. And there was a summer a few years back where we were probably at about 117 units or so. And I remember two things. I was car shopping and I was at the car dealer, and they were asking me, what do I do? And I was just telling them. And then they stopped. They said, you do what? You have how many properties? What? And then they called another person over here, they're like, this guy, and I was just like, what?
Well, they're probably thinking we're in the wrong position. We took the wrong job.
Right. So that was happening. And then what happened is that I went on a cruise, and it was, I went on a cruise with, it was one of these real estate cruises, and it was great. And I had fun, but I was by myself and I couldn't have friends because the friends were at work. And then I came back home and I was just frustrated because everybody had to go to work and I didn't. So I said, I know, I'll finally do something I always wanted to do. When I was younger and growing up in Germany, I would always get the catalogs of like Sears or what have you, and I'd flip through them and look through the stuff that I knew mom wasn't going to buy. But I'd look and circle and pretend as if it was actually going to happen. And I have this fascination with things that fly. So I started buying remote controlled helicopters. I was like, yeah, this is great. And then I got into photography, same summer. Two of the most expensive habits I'm aware of on the planet at the same time. And I just dove in and did that. And I was just like, wow, I can do this all day. And I did. And then it got to me, it's like, is there anything else though? I didn't want to keep doing all these things by myself. And that's when I began to figure out that I needed something else to do. I needed something else to keep me busy. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit around, spend more money than I should, and like do nothing with all of this information that I now have to help people. And that's when I started asking friends, like, what do you do when you don't have to work? Please tell me, because I don't know. And that's when it began about trying to teach and share with other people what it is that I do and have done, and helping them to do the same thing. And that's kind of where I light up today. I enjoy that way more than what I already do. Don't get me wrong. We intend to keep doing all those things. It's just I enjoy helping someone else get their first $100,000 in private capital, or get their first apartment building, or even just do their first deal and get started. Mm-hmm. That is way more fun for me today.
And I found that to be a pretty common theme with everyone who is what I would say is both successful and happy right now, is that they're giving their time back to others. That was something that was really important for me just in starting this podcast. What I realized was that, I had spent all of 2014 on a search for myself. And I don't think it's a selfish thing to do. I think it's an important thing to do. But when I realized that I wanted to start this podcast, it was kind of like right in front of me, and I couldn't quite tell what it was
Sure.
because I had this search for what I wanted and what my meaning was. And then it was like, well, wait a minute. What if I share 100 other people's stories about how they did it and how they got there? Like maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Maybe it's not really about me. It's about sharing with
Right.
others and opening up to others. And so I think that that has really been a common theme of what everyone should do in life, whether they're stuck, whether they're working a job that they don't like, or maybe they picked up, model planes as a hobby and they got bored.
Right.
I think that they need to try something that lets them give back to others. So along those lines, what advice do you have for someone who maybe either A, is in a job, or B, doesn't have a job and needs to figure out something to do? Maybe they're at that point of, bank accounts pretty much run out, or maybe they're at that point of emotional and mental bank account has run out because they don't enjoy what they're doing.
Right.
What advice do you have for them, or what steps should they take to kind of dig out of that hole?
Well, I, having had the fortune now to hang out with some notable individuals, I'll just tell you as many things that they have said and that I agree with a lot. Many real estate people will understand the name Ken McElroy, or even Robert Kiyosaki, and I just know that at the end of the day, having been able to be an influence and actually spend time with those individuals has made a significant difference on perspective. But for every business person, sales cures all ills, period. Go sell something. Now, I just said a four-letter word to some people. They're like, I don't want to sell. Okay, well, then don't even try to be in business, because there's no avoiding it. Because I get this all the time. Jay, I just want to do real estate. Okay, cool. Learn to sell. Well, I don't want to sell. Well, then don't do real estate. But it's about the building. No, it's about selling. You don't understand. Well, all I want to do is buy and hold. That's wonderful. Guess what? You're selling the same building to the same person every 30 days. You gotta sell. And you gotta understand that as you go into it. For most people, there's what I call the path to becoming. And it starts with desire. Once you have that desire, the next thing you should do is to learn to invest your time differently. So it goes from desire then to time. What you should be investing your time into is gaining new skills or talents. Okay, new skills or talents. Once you begin to gain those new skills or talents, this is where the magic begins to happen, is because you get into new relationships. Those new relationships open up doors of opportunity that you haven't even begun to try to imagine or consider. In fact, I would dare say you're afraid to consider what would actually happen if you did. And then once you've established, here's the next step, credit and or credibility with those new relationships, you then get to the next step, which is cash, meaning you now have a product or service, usually by that point, that you could sell to other people, people who would buy from you, so that you have a business that can go. And then after you get to that stage of cash, then you get to the cash flow, how to set things up with systems and automation, so that you have the ability to do, still deliver the product or service without you being personally involved. And then and only then do you get to step number 8, which most people are chasing today, is significance. And then you can begin to do those other things. If you want to free willy, then great. You have the time to free willy and hug as many trees as you want and save all of the orphans on the planet, because you've taken care and become all of the things that you need to become in order, whatever that is for each and every person. No matter where you are, emotionally, bankrupt or financially, or, you're feeling stressed, that's the path you're on somewhere in there. And you just got to figure out where you are and what that next step is.
Cool. We just got some feedback there just before number 8, the last step there.
Significance?
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy when you talk. Maybe try like unplugging and plugging back in real quick for your...
The microphone?
Yeah.
One, oh, 1, 2. Oh, can you? Hello? Oh, that's not working. That's the wrong microphone. That's probably voice.
Yeah, for some reason it got like really fuzzy.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I didn't do anything.
No worries.
Promise.
It could have been interference or whatever. Real quick, let's just jump back to that last step, step number 8.
Okay, so what happens is that as you're going through that process, then you're now at that final step. Again, most people are trying to get to that step as quickly as humanly possible, and oftentimes out of order. Is step number 8 being just all about significance. This is where notable individuals who are at that step are individuals like Oprah. She's someone who is of significance, where just being around her or knowing, being influenced by her, or just all those things, she affects change in certain ways because she has the time, the ability, and the resources to be able to effect change. And once you begin to become that person, that's a great feeling and a good thing to be. That's one of the reasons why I like real estate, because even at a small level, we're providing clean, safe, affordable housing and jobs to people. And when you do it, especially with apartment buildings, you begin to change zip codes and neighborhoods. And that's really cool to me, is to start with something that's broken, fix it, come back, see the jobs and things vibrant and working. It's like, wow, we did that. And that started with an idea and a whole lot of hard work and a great team. But that's what an entrepreneur has the ability to do, is to be eventually become someone of significance.
And that's really how it all starts, is just one idea and a lot of hard work going behind it. And I think that I don't think there's any real numbers to measure this, but a lot of people say that some people get so close to where they need to be, and they give up. They give up too soon, whether it's 30 seconds before something happens,
Right.
or 30
Right.
days before something happens, and they're like right there on the verge of finding that success. And it really just means going back to that idea that you originally had and saying, like, this is what I told myself I was going to do, and I'm going to see it all the way through. So clearly, you are in a much better place now. You have learned a lot of things over time. What would you say if you could just go back to yourself maybe 10, 15 years ago? Is there any just one particular thing where you would say, whether it's like, hey, don't go out and play sports because you're going to puncture a lung? Or is it just like, make sure that you work hard and never give up? What would you want to tell your
Got
younger
it.
self?
Woo! Crazy question. Love it. All right. Um, and I think this applies for everybody. At the end of the day, I actually wouldn't change what has happened, because what has happened has been the foundation of what I get to do today. And I love what I get to do today. Friends ask me, hey, what would you do if you couldn't do this? Like, what thing are you working towards being able to do? I'm like, I'm already doing it. Then this is it. Woo! Therefore, what I would say is, I would say to fail faster, fail more frequently, and fail forward. You got to fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently. And I would have told myself to do that, because growing up, you get afraid of making mistakes. You get your hand slapped if in school, if you try to get help, they call it cheating. And you're like, no, I just don't understand. Help me. And I would have learned some of those lessons sooner. Learn how to vet and trust people, so that again, which is part of failing fast, is you gotta fail through building relationships, and you gotta fail forward to building teams. And learning how to fail is so critical to your success. I mean, you've heard it said before, but the way to success is only through failure. It's not around failure. It's not under failure. It's not over failure. It's straight through. And nobody likes that message. Not even me.
Nope.
But it's the truth at the end of the day. You don't learn anything without failing at it first.
Absolutely. I think that life is just kind of like this constant state of failing and success, and whatever fail we do have leads to a different success, So like, you start one business, it doesn't really work out, but you found this other business. So really, you didn't fail, because you got to where you eventually needed to be. And there's a great Steve Jobs quote about, you can only connect the dots looking back. You can't connect the dots looking forward and make sense of it. And he was really right. I mean, there's no way to say that whatever decision I'm about to make, whatever fear I'm about to go up against, no one's going to say it's 100% guaranteed safe bet, right? Like, that's just kind of how it is. And unless you actually try, there's no way you're going to find out what's on the other side except for going through.
Right.
So you've answered some really great questions here today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day. Get me up to speed just about where you are right now, how the business is doing, and what the best way is for people to stay in touch with you or find out more.
Sure. I mean, at the moment, you still, as you hinted at earlier, we're in the process of continuing the building with the resort. We're moving tenants in. We're doing what real estate people do. We're dealing with the ups as well as the downs because you got both of them. And we're continuing to make steady progress as real estate investors do. We're teaching new people how to get started, and they're having various levels of success as well as to raise capital. And we're running our own little mastermind groups and all this other stuff. But the best thing to do, I mean, there's just been so much that we've created and done. So we're just trying to do our best to get it all out there as quickly as humanly possible. If you want to meet more great entrepreneurs, obviously our podcast is there, and that's just at cashflowdiarypodcast.com. So very simple to get to, and that way you can listen. We have hundreds of episodes from many different entrepreneurs all across the globe. And if one of the things that I've become known for is helping people learn how to actually raise capital, because that's one of the things most entrepreneurs say, that if I just had the money, then I would finally go blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So here is an absolutely 100% free tool that I created. I call it the Profit Analysis Quadrant, PAQ for short. And many people have been able to use it. I've seen many people use it to raise millions of dollars for their own ventures, whether it's real estate, music, movies, it doesn't really matter. It works all the time. You can go to cashflowdiary.com/money tool. Money tool. That's how I look at it. It's a tool that helps you get some money. And then hopefully you can learn to deploy that in the marketplace to go create some more jobs, please, because that's what we have a shortage of, is entrepreneurs. And if there's anything here that's been shared that has helped you to jump over that hoop and actually become that entrepreneur, then I have done my job today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it. You truly have an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that as well. And congratulations on where you are right now, clearly with no punctured lungs at the moment. So let's knock on wood, fingers crossed that everybody stays healthy. And it's been so great speaking with you. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see everyone next time on our next episode of the Year of Purpose podcast. Don't forget, we do have show notes and a full transcript on our website at www.yearofpurpose.com. And you can find links in the show notes to things that we talked about in today's episode. All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
You've probably heard me talk about designing a life that you actually want to live. You might have even heard about my travels or experiences and thought to yourself, yeah, I do want to do that. Eventually, someday I'll probably do it. And my guess is that you've been thinking about doing it for a long time. So I want to tell you this. Stop thinking. Your time is right now. You don't need any more time. You don't need any more info. You don't need to keep putting it off and planning for the perfect time, because the truth of the matter is this. You could be the person who sits around and thinks about living a better life, or you can be the person that decides that today is the day that you're going to actually do it, and I want that for you. Because you already have what it takes. You've got a fire inside. Even if you can't see it right now, it's lit, but you need to open yourself up to the possibilities and throw a couple logs into the flames. So join me and the Year of Purpose tribe by subscribing to our YouTube channel and iTunes podcast. And if you really like us, please leave a review. This is Zephan Moses Blacksburg, and I can't wait to see you again on the Year of Purpose podcast.